In June 1314, against the backdrop of the Scottish Highlands, a momentous clash occurred that would change history. A modest force of roughly 6,000 Scots, largely comprised of hungry, ill-equipped warriors and peasants, stood their ground against one of Europe's most formidable military powers. Facing them was an English juggernaut of 20,000 soldiers, including elite armoured knights and seasoned veterans. Though a Scottish defeat seemed certain, the following 2 days would produce one of the most stunning military upsets of the Middle Ages. The road to rebellion. To understand this conflict, one must look at the years of English oppression. King Edward I, known as the Hammer of the Scots, had stripped Scotland of its independence, executing any noble who refused to submit. Even the legendary William Wallace had fallen to the English gallows. In this dark hour, Robert the Bruce emerged. Despite a rocky start, including the murder of a rival in a church and being excommunicated, he was crowned King of Scotland in 1306. For years, he operated as a king without a kingdom, utilising guerrilla warfare to slowly reclaim Scottish strongholds. By 1314, only Stirling Castle remained under English control. A deal was struck. If no English rescue arrived by June 24th, the castle would surrender. King Edward II could not ignore this challenge and marched north with a massive army to crush the rebellion once and for all. The strategy of the Bruce Robert the Bruce was a master tactician.
Rise up and take back
the English to fight on a narrow strip of land hemmed in by the Bannockburn, a small stream, and thick forests, preventing the English from using their superior numbers. He prepared the ground with hidden traps, thousands of small pits covered with grass to trip the English heavy cavalry, the schiltron, disciplined formations of soldiers armed with 3-meter spears, creating human hedgehogs that were nearly impenetrable to horsemen. Day 1. A king's bravery. On June 23rd, the English arrived. In a moment that became legend, an English knight named Henry de Bohun spotted Bruce riding alone on a small pony. Seeking glory, de Bohun charged with his lance. At the last second, Bruce swerved, rose in his stirrups, and split the knight's helmet and skull with a single blow of his battle axe. This act of individual prowess sent Scottish morale skyrocketing. Day 2. The collapse of an empire at dawn. On June 24th, the English attempted to cross the narrow terrain of the Bannockburn. It was a disaster. Cavalry chaos. The heavy knights crashed into the wall of Scottish spears or fell into hidden pits. The cramped space meant they couldn't manoeuvre. Friendly fire. The famous Welsh longbowmen tried to intervene, but the armies were so entangled that their arrows struck their own English comrades. The final push. Bruce sent his light cavalry to scatter the archers and then committed his fresh reserves. The breaking point came when the Scottish small folk, servants and camp followers, appeared on a nearby hill. The exhausted English mistook them for a fresh army. Panic erupted. Shouts of treason filled the air as the English line collapsed. The aftermath, the retreat turned into a massacre. King Edward II fled for his life, while thousands of his men drowned in the river or were cut down. England lost over 4,000 soldiers, while the Scots lost fewer than 500. Bannockburn proved that discipline and terrain could overcome raw numbers. It solidified Robert the Bruce's reign and broke the momentum of English conquest. 14 years later, in 1328, the Treaty of Edinburgh finally forced England to officially recognise Scotland as an independent kingdom. While the victory at Bannockburn was decisive on the field, the political war lasted for another 14 years. Robert the Bruce knew that winning a battle was not the same as winning a peace. He had to prove to the world, and specifically to the Pope, that Scotland was a sovereign nation with a legitimate king. The Declaration of Arbroath, 1320. 6 years after the battle, the Scottish nobles sent a powerful letter to Pope John XXII. This document, known as the Declaration of Arbroath, is one of the most famous in Scottish history. It didn't just claim independence, it introduced a revolutionary idea, the right of the people to choose their leader. It is not for riches, nor honours, nor glory that we are fighting, but for freedom, for that alone, which no honest man gives up but with life itself. The final recognition. England's internal politics eventually collapsed into chaos, and after the forced abdication of Edward II, his son, Edward III, was forced to the negotiating table. In 1328, the Treaty of Edinburgh-Northampton was signed. Through this treaty, England formally recognised Robert the Bruce as the King of Scots. Scotland was acknowledged as a fully independent kingdom. The hammer of the Scots legacy was finally buried. The legacy of the Bruce. Robert the Bruce died only a year after peace was achieved, in 1329. According to legend, his heart was taken on a crusade to Spain by his loyal friend, Sir James Douglas, before being returned to Scotland to be buried at Melrose Abbey. Today, Bannockburn remains the ultimate symbol of Scottish national identity. It proved that a smaller, determined nation could survive the ambitions of a much larger neighbour through intelligence, unity, and an unbreakable will. The victory at Bannockburn was not just a military triumph, it was the birth of a new Scottish identity.
My people,
However,
we have endured too long.
The road to total independence was still long and filled with political manoeuvring.
My brave warriors, the hour of destiny is at hand. We march united to claim our birthright.
After the battle, the English refused to acknowledge Robert the Bruce as king. To force their hand, Bruce and his most loyal commander, James the Black Douglas, launched a series of devastating raids into northern England. For years, the Scots took the fight to English soil, proving that the balance of power had shifted. These raids weakened the English economy and forced the English nobility to realize that the war in the north was unwinnable. 2. The invasion of Ireland, 1315 to 1318. Robert the Bruce had a grand vision, a pan-Gaelic alliance against the English. He sent his brother, Edward Bruce, to Ireland to open a second front. Edward was even crowned High King of Ireland for a short time. While this campaign eventually failed and Edward was killed in battle, it succeeded in distracting the English military and preventing them from launching another full-scale invasion of Scotland. 3. The Declaration of Arbroath, 1320. Perhaps the most significant soft power victory occurred in 1320. Scottish nobles sent a letter to the Pope in Rome to justify their independence. This document, the Declaration of Arbroath, contained a revolutionary idea for the Middle Ages: the king serves the people. It famously stated, "For, as long as but 100 of us remain alive, never will we on any conditions be brought under English rule." This document convinced the Pope to lift the excommunication of Robert the Bruce, giving him divine legitimacy in the eyes of Europe. 4. Final peace. The Treaty of Edinburgh-Northampton, 1328. By 1328, England was exhausted by internal conflict and the relentless Scottish resistance. The young King Edward III finally signed the Treaty of Edinburgh-Northampton. This treaty was the ultimate prize. It recognized Scotland as an independent nation. It acknowledged Robert the Bruce as the rightful King of Scots. It ended the 30-year War of Independence. 5. The death and legacy of the Bruce. Robert the Bruce died in 1329, just 1 year after achieving his life's goal. On his deathbed, he requested that his heart be taken to the Holy Land. During a battle in Spain, James Douglas threw the silver casket containing the heart into the enemy ranks, shouting, "Lead on, Braveheart, I will follow thee." The heart was later recovered and buried at Melrose Abbey, where it remains a site of pilgrimage today. Why it matters today. Bannockburn remains the ultimate symbol of Scottish pride. It taught the world that technology and numbers are no match for terrain, tactics, and an unbreakable spirit. The tactics used there, the schiltrons, changed medieval warfare forever, proving that infantry could defeat the most expensive heavy cavalry in the world. Would you like me to tell you more about the legendary Black Douglas, or perhaps explain how the Scottish spears, schiltrons, actually worked in detail?